Hello, my name's Suzanne Lillehaug, and I did my paper on substance abuse treatment programs. I chose this topic because I didn't really know a whole lot of treatment programs before I did this, and as I was reading, it was really interesting to see how substance abuse offenders impact everyone, not just their friends, family, themselves, but the whole community, and what it really means to be a substance abuse offender and how it impacts everyone. So in my presentation, I'm going to be going over my main idea and why I think we should use substance abuse treatment programs, the history behind how the treatment programs came about, why it's so important to our community and just for everyone related to it. All my research that I looked at, what the studies did and what they concluded with, what limitations come with the substance abuse treatment programs, my solutions and some solutions that some of the studies came up with, and I'll conclude everything. So introduction, my idea was substance abuse treatment programs are better, more efficient, and cost less than prisons. By rehabilitating them, offenders could live in society and would not commit future crime. It would also get offenders much healthier physically and mentally, and also inadvertently controls crime, because once they're in treatment and getting better, there's no need to go out commit crimes while they're high or drunk, and also they're not out there buying drugs because they're much better and they understand that there's a better life for them outside of using drugs. The history behind it was, in the past, people tended to go to prison more or less and to be punished. They didn't go there to be really cured of anything. They were just sent away because they committed a crime. In the 1980s, the government declared war on drugs, and it started cracking down on the drug crimes. And as they cracked down, the incarceration rates skyrocketed because everyone was going to jail for itty-bitty drug crimes, or started at itty-bitty drug crimes and it eventually go up. Drug courts were created because they're different than regular courts. They created drug courts in the late 80s, and they did it because drug courts were taking it, or drug offenses were taking up so much time. They flooded the regular courts, so they decided to create these other drug courts because drug crimes are much different than regular crimes. They're committed for many different reasons, and the people that commit them are different than those that commit felonies like murder and rape. Why it's important to our society is it can reduce recidivism rates, as well as it controls crime control. Offenders also cost taxpayers money just by them having to rely on the government for their expenses, and that comes out of taxpayers' money, as well as prisons cost quite a bit more than treatment programs. Treatment programs also give offenders a chance to become healthier and to change. It's not just sending them to prison to be punished for their crime. It's showing them that we also want to help them better themselves. So I looked at many different studies, and the most one that stuck out to me was, I never thought of it, the environment of an offender. One study looked at positive network resources, which is friends, family, that when the offender gets out of treatment, they can rely on their network to help them not go back to drugs and alcohol. They help them get through their treatment and to get better. A lot of offenders start doing drugs with friends and family, so having a positive network resource was actually quite hard to do. Another one was the prison environment. And even though the prison is a controlled and secure environment, anyone with contacts can get stuff smuggled into them with ease. And it's an environment that can have drugs. So, of course, offenders that are in treatment, they're going to get drugs in prison. So it's not really helping them at all. And also staff turnover. Offenders in treatment need consistency and help, and when staff is there for so long and then they have a lot of staff turnover, they're not getting the consistency. They seem to, one nurse is helping them, then they get a new nurse, and they're not having a consistent pattern in their life, so that kind of disrupts their treatment. And one study concluded that we needed staff with qualifications to do it to help them, and that'll help their treatment in the long run. The biggest or the most researches I found was the cost, prison versus treatment. And a lot of one concluded, depending the state, the prison, and the treatment program, prison costs twice as much, 3 times, even 4 times as much as treatment. Like I said, it depends on the state and everything. But also there was hidden costs of offenders. Offenders out in the community, they rely on welfare and unemployment and Medicaid, and that's costing taxpayers money. Also, offenders in prison can cost just as much money as them being out in the community. The Supreme Court ruled that prisoners or inmates in prison need a certain amount of medical attention and not just the basics that cover basically anything or basically nothing at all. And they found that unconstitutional. So inmates in prison need a certain amount of medical attention, and that costs us money. Another one was a connection between crimes and drugs. And many offenders in prison are there for drug offenses. Many of them test positive for illegal substance when they come into the prison. Many admit that they started drugs and then committed crimes. Some, although they admitted that they started committing crimes and then started drugs. And some even commit them or start them at the same time. Many of the studies showed that there is a connection. Sometimes the drug does not lead to the crime committed, but there's a very good chance that those that are on drugs will commit crimes. Many limitations to the treatment programs, but there's 3 main ones that limit offenders in treatment. And the first one is the availability of legal substances in prison. There are treatment programs in prison, but like I said, the availability of drugs in prison hinges on their treatment. So basically it's a waste of time and money because they're going to treatment during the day and then they can score anything at night. So it's not helping their treatment at all. Lack of resources was a huge one. Funding comes from taxpayers, but because a lot of treatment programs lack funding, they can't give the proper resources to the offenders in treatment programs. There is public and private treatment programs. Private, obviously, they can afford better. They don't always have the more staff, but they can afford the better doctors, psychologists, staff. Public treatment programs, they have the more staff, but they always don't have the best. and that comes into a problem because you can't have the proper resources to help the offenders. The last one was voluntary participation in treatment. One study did what's called legal sanction, which is basically coercing or threatening an offender into a treatment program, or they go to prison. And many offenders, if they don't believe that they need treatment, they won't participate in treatment. They won't basically think they do not need treatment. And so they're not open to change. And that hinges on them just a waste of time, really. And that takes away space for those offenders that want and need treatment. I came up with a couple of solutions, as well as many in the studies I found. The one I thought of is they're saving so much money with doing treatment programs that even some prisons are closing. And they're saving so much money by not having to build new prisons or staff them if they have to close down a wing. I say reinvest that money into the program. That'll help the lack of funding, and that could help offenders get the resources they need. Another one was not force offenders to participate in prison. One, we can help them understand that treatment does help, and we're just trying to help them and not force them to do anything. But those that don't want to go to treatment, let's not try to force them. Let's leave that open for those that really want to go to treatment. The last one was to start offenders as soon as possible in treatment. The longer the stay in treatment, the better outcome it is for them. You can't be treated of addiction overnight. It's a lifelong battle, and the longer they're in the program or getting therapy or some kind of treatment in their lives, the better outcome they will have. So the conclusion to all this research was treatment does reduce recidivism rates and effectively controls crime. It helps the crime rates go down. Treatment programs cost less than prison, and like I said, some by half, some by many times over. So we're saving the taxpayers money, and we need to reinvest that money. It also benefits taxpayers, the community, and offenders. The community, they're becoming safer, the crime rate has gone down, and we also save them money, which a lot of taxpayers like the idea that we don't have to spend money on stuff that is not a necessity. And by saving money, that makes everyone happy. And it also benefits the offender by we're helping them mentally and physically get past this disease called an addiction. And that in the long run will help them. They can get off all the government assistance. They can live in society as a normal person, and they can live a normal life. And that, again, benefits everyone. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope it was very informational to you. I enjoyed reading about it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.